Iran's supreme leader says that there will be a harsh response to the two explosions that killed at least 84 people in the country yesterday. That death toll has been revised down from the initial reports. Hundreds more were injured, though. The blast ripped through a large crowd that had gathered to mark 4 years since the Iranian general Qassem Soleimani was killed by a U.S. drone strike. The CBS News intelligence and national security reporter Olivia Gazis is following the attack and is joining us now. So, Olivia, let's start with that first. Is there any more information about who may be responsible for this attack?
Well, Anne-Marie, good morning. No group has come forward yet to claim responsibility for these attacks, but there's a lot of fingers being pointed internally, as you'd expect. The regime in Tehran was quick to assign blame to agents of Israel and the United States, which it often does when these kinds of attacks happen. We did hear yesterday several U.S. officials publicly deny being involved at all in these attacks and said that there was no information linking them to Israel either. The going assumption, which we heard from a senior Biden administration official late yesterday, is that this was a terror attack, possibly the work of ISIS, which does have cells operating in Iran and which has struck in Iran in the recent past. I mean, to be clear, you can't deny that both the U.S. and Israel have carried out operations in Iran in the past, right, which is what has heightened suspicions here. But those have been targeting military officials or nuclear facilities, and the reason that experts and sources that I've spoken with are saying that this is more of the hallmarks of a terror group is because of the character of it, the apparent objective of it, how the explosives were placed and timed, apparently to maximize civilian harm rather than to eliminate a specific military or otherwise valuable target.
All right, then let me ask you about another airstrike, this one in Baghdad today. Officials say an Iran-backed militia leader was killed in that. What do we know about that?
That's right. So this was a strike apparently carried out overnight our time on militia headquarters in eastern Baghdad that reportedly killed multiple fighters, including a senior commander who headed up militia operations in Iraq. The militia coalition has blamed the United States. We're still waiting to hear from the administration on this one. What it looks like at this early stage is that, the U.S. may be getting tired of this drumbeat of Shia militia attacks on its forces in Iraq and may be starting to hit back. What we don't know is whether this strike, again, in Baghdad, so that's a pretty bold target, was cleared with the Iraqi government, which is politically reliant on the support of these militias. So to have had advance notice is unlikely, and what it does is raise the prospect that the government will now tell the U.S. to remove its forces, which until now have been operating there at the Iraqi government's request. So we'll see what the fallout is here.
So obviously there's a lot going on in the region, and, we talk about the war between Israel and Hamas, and though a lot of what we're seeing is not directly connected, there is always overlap or something along those lines. So you got to ask the question, what sort of impact could this have on the wider Middle East region?
Far from positive, overwhelmingly negative, right? It's going to make this already paranoid regime in Tehran even more paranoid. Possibly incentivize other groups to carry out these kinds of opportunistic attacks. And to your point, yeah, it could tip the scales in what has already been this very precarious balance to trigger this broader conflagration in the region that has been the scenario that this administration has been working strenuously to avoid. But you're seeing these more and more volatile skirmishes happening, yes, outside of Gaza, in the Red Sea, in Iran, in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon. And so the risks of that happening, of miscalculation, of drawing other actors into the fold really do appear to be rising pretty rapidly in just the past few days.
And so now we've learned that Secretary of State Antony Blinken is traveling to the Middle East. We've been told, or it's been reported, that he's going to go to Israel as well as other capitals in the region. What can we expect?
Sure. It hasn't been formally announced, but this will be the Secretary's fourth trip to the region since those October 7th attacks. And as with previous trips, as you say, he's expected to make multiple stops to meet with leaders in Arab states, in Israel, in the West Bank, and possibly others. While the objectives of this visit are probably going to be largely the same as they have been in previous trips, again, the stakes seem to have been ratcheted up steadily by these dramatic developments over the past few days. So you can expect that Secretary Secretary Blinken is going to keep up the pressure on Israel to move to that more targeted military phase of using counterterrorism operations and not sort of broader airstrikes to boost the amount of humanitarian aid getting into Gaza, which is still just filtering in, to maintain the hostage issue, and to probably most urgently at this stage work to roll back some of the tension that is increasingly spilling beyond Gaza into these neighboring countries, and again raising the risk that a significant regional spillover of this conflict could result.
All right, Olivia, thank you so much.
Thanks, Anne Marie.